Welcome back to Things Go Sideways, the place for honest conversations about what happens when your world, your life, or your business gets shaken up in a way that makes it impossible to continue on the same path. When you've reached that impasse, those are the stories that we collect. Today, I'm sitting down with Shane Barker. Shane is a CEO. He's a digital marketing strategist. He's the founder of TraceViews AI. He spent over 20 years building businesses and advising Fortune 500 companies. And along the way, he learned that plans that looked the most solid were often the first to fall apart. Partnerships dissolved, markets shifted, and then the strategies that were supposed to scale instead stalled. Shane, thank you for being here. I am so excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I was excited when we heard that I was going to be jumping on here today, and I think the audience is going to enjoy this. We have a great story of definitely going not necessarily the direction I was looking to go in, and
Well,
that was forced upon me.
that is a great start because I wanted to ask you about your sideways story or a sideways story because I know you've had several.
Yeah. So, I mean, once again, I know this is the podcast is only about 30 to 45 minutes. We could spend 3 days together on talking about all the different things that have gone sideways in business. And, we always joke around about, all the successful stuff. Like on paper, I look amazing. We don't talk about the 10,000 other failed businesses and the things that made me learn, the type of entrepreneur and the type of consultant that I am today and the businesses that I built because of that. So what happened so I have kind of give you a little backstory. So I've obviously grown quite a few businesses myself. As I said, we talk about more successes, but now we're going to talk about some of the failures. I had a business called U.S. Loan Auditors, and what it was a business that we were helping people that were put into bad loans. And so what that means is like, if this was originally when I was in Sacramento, California, but what I'm talking about is that if somebody goes and let's say they were going to get a loan, they're offered a 4%. And this is right around 2008. This is when they had the mortgage collapse and all the different things that happened right around that time. And one of the issues is that a lot of people were putting people in bad loans. And what I mean by that, they were incentivized to put somebody in a bad loan. You would get as a broker or as a real estate agent or a mortgage broker, you would get more money to put somebody in like an arm or something. So that's the premise of the story. And I thought, man, this is kind of unethical. And especially if you don't speak the language, you don't speak English, and so you get an 8%, you thought you're getting a 4%. There's no translator there. There's certain rules and laws that protect consumers. And so what I realized was that a lot of people were being put in these pretty crazy loans, these predatory loans,
Yeah.
predatory. And so I thought, you know what, hey, what do we need to do to kind of fix this, to kind of even the playing field? So what I did, and was thinking, hey, this is the good thing to do, the ethical thing to do, is I was helping these people file lawsuits. And I'm not an attorney, so we had two different businesses. And what we would do is we would help them go and fight the big guy. So that was really the premise of what we were doing. And being young and naive and all the things, I thought, well, hey, as long as we're doing the right thing, we'll get in front of the right judges. The judges will say, yep, clearly nobody was there to help translate. They were offered a 4% through an email. They were given an 8%, and they just sold their house. So they're kind of being put in a bad situation where they had to move forward. So
Yeah.
I thought, man, this is going to be awesome. Like this is going to take off and people are going to hear about it, and there was definitely a good amount of time where I'm not going to say the hero, but I was definitely looked upon where people were like, hey, this is awesome. You're fighting for the small guy. Because the issue is if you have a house and you lose your house and things are going bad, if you can't afford to pay your mortgage, you're probably not going to be able to hire a big, attorney with, big guns, and, it's going to be very expensive to do that. And so
Yeah.
we thought, well, how do we lower this, right? Make it so that they can have a voice out there. And so that was me flying a little blind, right? Well, not blind, but naive, right? And thinking that, hey, this thing will take off. Well, the crazy part is we had probably 1,600 customers. We absolutely blew up. We were $25 million valuation within 2 years. I had three offices. I had 130 employees. This is all within 2 years. So I'm we're this thing was just going right, and I'm looking at this thing and go, man, this is incredible. I'm walking into a 25,000 square foot office, a Class A building in Rancho Cordova, California, and I'm looking around going, man, this is like, what just happened? This is awesome. We're really making some traction here. Well, the issue that we ran into, and once again, being naive, I didn't have lobbyists, I didn't have any of these things. I'm just a young entrepreneur, just trying to do the right thing. Well, the problem is you got to realize that, if you start stepping on people's toes and you start doing things, you have to be very careful on who you mess with, right? Like you're
Mhm.
probably not going to go in and pop the tire of like the Hells Angels. Like that's not
Yeah.
recommended last time I checked. But this I thought, well, we're doing the right thing, right? We're really going after and helping like consumers that were put in bad positions. Well, what I didn't realize is that, well, I did realize, but not understand the magnitude of it, is that we were going up against, the big banks. We have Bank of America, Wells Fargo, WAMU, all these banks that have attorneys and have a lot of money and have, a lot more clout than I do and have a lot more pull than I do in certain areas, right? I didn't, and so the Attorney General of California, Jerry Brown, hit us with it's either a 60 or $62 million lawsuit. No, it's like, yeah, 60 or 62 million. I mean, it was 60 plus. Let's put it that way.
Insane. That's insane.
What was crazy about it was I'm like, man, this is nuts because we were once again doing the right thing. Were we making money? Were we charging people? I mean, we had a business, right? But at the end of the day, what was nuts is that, and the way that things kind of unraveled, to kind of give you a little bit of the story, is the there was people that, we have 1,600 customers. Well, guess what? Not everybody wins, right? It's a court case, and so sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And so when would lose, they were obviously not happy about that. But the problem is they wanted to save their house. But once again, we can't guarantee a win, right? I mean, we would never say that we could guarantee a win. So there started to be some people that weren't happy with that, and that's what they really pressed on, was the people that didn't have great results with us. And so that was kind of how they started to unravel it a little bit and say, oh, these people are unhappy, you took money from them. And it's like, well, okay, but they also were able to stay in their house for free for 6 months. Everybody has their own story. But and so that was kind of how they kind of edged their way in. And there's a million other things that happen that we don't have time for on the podcast today. Just know that it was one of those situations that I was very prideful in the beginning. Hey, walking into this office, the success that we've had. I
Yeah.
mean, we were spending $500,000 a month in mailers. I mean, we were doing
Yeah.
all these different things, and hey, things were great at it. My own little marketing department as one of the founders, we were doing video, we were doing all this great stuff and really helping people. So I was very, very proud of that. For me, I was more of I just want to help people. That's always been, I grew up with, like hippies and we were like a hugging family. Not that you can't be a bad person if you hug, but I'm just saying, I love
Yeah.
dogs and kind of gives you a little bit of a story here.
Yeah.
And so I thought, we would be good. And then when this happened, it was exactly what you said. I woke up and when this was kind of the stuff was hitting the fan, I'm like, what is going on? Like, how did this happen? Like, what are we looking at here? And the good part is that we had plenty of money because of, the business was successful. And so we had, the top 10, actually at that time, it was the top 10 attorney firm that we had hired to look over all our documentation before that even came from the attorney general. Cause I said, hey, I want to make sure we're doing everything compliant. We're on the up and up. I mean, I knew that we were in a space that we could have some potential problems, for banks and people that have, big dollars and have a lot of clout and have, networks and stuff like that. So that was the hard part. So when this actually came across, it was crazy. Like I was like, man, what is going on? And they also did a really bad negative PR campaign against me as
Oh,
well.
oh,
Yeah, because that
oh,
was that was how they wanted to kind of turn the ship a little bit, right? To say, hey,
yeah.
watch out for this guy. And so there was before I used to be up on billboards in Sacramento and like, there's a place called Cal Expo. So I was on these billboards of all good stuff. Hey, we're helping people. This is awesome. We had like a green, like a Scion vehicle that said, don't be put in predatory loans. So we were doing, tons of marketing. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, watch out for this guy, right? Watch out for these companies. And so that was very hard for me because I take it very personally when somebody attacks me, right? Like I'm a
Yeah.
very emotional human being. And so and especially when you have people that have big bucks and they just want to take you down and they'll do anything to take you down, even if you feel like it's unfair play. And so that was very hard for me, but it was also a life lesson that I realized is like, man, this whole thing's happening and there's not much I can do about it. And I either have to fight, which you're fighting not something imaginary, but they're huge, right? They've got
Yeah.
way more money than I have, way more access to different groups and things than I do. And so it was a very humbling experience because I'm a little bit of an Irish scrapper, so it's like, hey, I'm used to like I have no problem with a little fight here and there, but this was just like, man, I gotta like kind of salvage myself and my business and try to do everything I can to be able to ride this thing on out. And so it
That's
was
hard. It's like continued, it's like drawn out. And then I imagine no matter how scrappy and tough you are at the beginning, at the front end of that sort of a thing, all of the questions that you go through and asking yourself about like, and the relationships that you have being impacted as you're going along. Most of us will never know what that's like, where you have, some big bad Goliath coming at you on purpose and with a negative PR campaign geared gunning for your business and you personally.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Well, it was crazy, and it was one of those things that like I'm a stubborn individual, right? So it's like for me, I don't give up easily. But
Mhm.
there was a point, as you kind of touched on, where I kind of had to look at this and say, okay, how long can I continue to fight this? What I mean is more like online and people saying stuff that were saying untrue things about me and my family and the people that worked for our company. And so I was constantly fighting that. Instead of growing the business, now I'm fighting people that are saying things that are untrue. And so that was a big thing for me because people are saying stuff like it was ex-employees and stuff that I fired and even competitors at a certain point. And so there was this narrative that was put out there that was false. But the problem is anybody can, especially when you have these companies that have big bucks, they can say whatever they want and they can bleed you out. I could still win, but they could bleed you out, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. They have the money and the resources, and that's why what we were doing on our side was trying to help the small guy that was put into not necessarily the situation we were put into, but put into a bad situation. And so that came back to kind of bite us. And so we thought, man, how are we going to fight this thing? And once again, there's so many other moving pieces that go into this story that we don't probably have enough time to talk about today on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this. So this is a crazy part of the story that I'm actually excited that we're able to chat about today. So I had an attorney. His name is Greg Peterson. Awesome guy. I mean, a great attorney. Very very ethical, but just awesome. And the reason why he's awesome, and I'll explain that here in a second. So what happened was we long story short is they ended up freezing my bank accounts. And they froze all of our personal accounts and all of my business banking accounts. And the reason why that happens obviously is because they want to, it's a checkmate, right? Like how am I going to be able to continue to do anything if I can't access funds, I can't pay employees. So it was I understand their tactical move on why they did that, but that really obviously affects everything that we do, right? We look bad if we can't do business, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. So if you think we were good at one point and then we stopped doing helping you, it's like, well, it's not because we were on the run, because I still have the same phone number from literally 15 years ago. It's the same exact phone number, and I stay in the same house, and anyway. So but what was crazy about it is that you have this situation where people are saying these things and you've got to go and you've got to fight that. And so that was the hard part for me, is like, being able to go in and being able to clear my name. So we had some insurance plans, some insurance policies that we put together. And I'll be honest with you, they were these big policies. The guy was a friend of mine's dad that put the policies together. I didn't read them. I'm not going to read a 700-page policy because I wouldn't understand it anyways. Like, really, just be honest. So he put us in these policies. So they go and they freeze our accounts. And once again, other stories behind this, but the idea is they froze our accounts. And so I'm looking at this and like, okay, well, how am I going to survive this thing, right? Well, what was crazy is my attorney says, hey, we went to some of those policies and we went ahead and we emailed those guys directly and said, hey, they just froze his accounts. He needs to take advantage of this policy. Well, all of those companies, those insurance companies said, no, we're not going to give you any money. And I'm like, okay. And once again, I didn't read all the policies, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm assuming that's valid, right? That they're not going to give me any money. And that makes sense. And so I went to Greg and he's like, yeah, we reach out to him. But usually what happens in these situations is you have to go and you have to get an attorney to fight the insurance companies. And I'm not saying this is all the time. So they know you're in a situation, right? And so
Yeah.
now you're going, you don't have the money because they know that your money's running out. They know you're not going to be able to sue them. And I'm not saying once again, not all insurance companies are bad. I'm just telling you, this is my personal story. So next, we go in and I'm running out of money. So I go to my Greg's like, hey, Shane, I really want to meet with you. So it's like, all right. So I go down to his office and he's like, hey, we're running out of money quick. And I was like, yeah, hey, I can't continue to fight the case. Like any money that I have, I've got to this has got to go towards my family because I don't have a business. I don't, like we're in a dire situation here. And so I've got to save this money and take it on myself and, be able to, whatever we do legally, I'm just going to have to fight it and figure out how to go through it. And of course
Yeah.
you're a sitting duck if you don't have an attorney, like you're just
Yeah.
waiting for something bad to happen because I don't know what to say, what not to say. I'm just going to tell you how I feel from my heart and what I feel is like is going on, and be honest about things. And a lot of the times you're not supposed to do that. So
Yeah.
it was, you'd be, it could be kind of in a bad situation. So long story short, or long, I guess. Um, so he files all this stuff, tries to go after the insurance companies, and just says, hey, and they all denied it and said, okay, fine. Well, then all of a sudden, Greg reaches out to me. He's like, hey, can you come in tomorrow morning? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And so he said, and I'm a little bit of a smart aleck too. And I said, are you sure? I said, you sure we can meet Greg? Because I don't have money to pay you. And he's like, just get in here. Could be in a smart aleck. So anyway, so I go into his office, and we sit down. And I said, so what's going on? Because once again, we were already kind of separated. I mean, separated sounds like I broke up with my attorney. He broke up with me. I didn't have money. So he sits me down. He goes, I've never seen this in my life. And I'm like, what did you see? And he goes, one of these insurance companies came back, apologized, and realized that, you know what, they messed up, and they actually have a $3 million policy for you to fight this. And I'm like, as I tell you this, I have goosebumps all over my body. And I'm
Oh
like, I'm
God.
sorry, say what? And he's like, yeah, they apologized. They came back, and you have $3 million to fight this case. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was, I'm pretty sure I probably blacked out and came to, like, I don't remember that part, but I was like, you
Got
got
the
to be
smelling
kidding me.
salts. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, like, what happened? Did I get hit? You're like, oh yeah, you got hit with $3 million to fight this thing. So
Oh my
the
gosh.
way I looked at that was, I'm not a heavily religious person, like I'm not, we can believe whoever helped or whatever, but I do believe that if you're a good person and you do good things, that comes back. I've always been raised that way. So that's where, when this happened, I was very much in question of like, what have I done wrong? Like, right. Like, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying our business was perfect. We grew very, very fast. There was some things that could have been improved. Not saying, we never did some of the things that they said we did, but, there's some things that we could have done to improve, which in
Yeah.
any business, when you grow that fast, you could look back and there's ways to improve,
Yeah.
no different than anything. But yeah, so long story short, we ended up using about 2 million of those dollars of the 3 million, and we actually won. We actually
Wow.
we actually won the case.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it was nuts. It was 2 crazy years, because it wasn't a time where I could work, but it was like my reputation online was really, really bad, because people were saying, "Oh, he's this, he's that," and so there was this thing that I had to go through myself. And even like when I would apply for jobs, because I was like, "Well, I've got to get a job now." I had quite a few interviews with people like, "Hey, great, oh my God, this is amazing. This is what you've done." And I wouldn't hide that I was part of US Loan Auditors, or because
Yeah.
there was nothing for me. I didn't want to like take
Yeah.
that out, because I wasn't embarrassed about it, right? Like I felt bad for the customers and for my employees, but what happened was part of my journey, right? Like, so I looked at that and I felt very strongly
Yeah.
about that. Well, I would get these companies that would say, "Hey, we want to hire you. Oh my God, great background, long history, blah, blah, blah." And then they would ghost me. And I was like, "God, it's kind of weird." And I was like, "Oh, it's because they would go and look me up online, and they would see that we had a lawsuit and attorney general and all this." And of course, you instantly think, "I don't want any part of that." Like, it could be true or untrue, but I still don't want any part of that, right? You're like, "Oh, okay." So that was something that really sucked, because I couldn't get a job. I couldn't do anything. I was trying to pull my name out of the mud. And so it took 2 years for that to happen. And once again, there's so many other stories in between this, as I said, because we're only at so much time. But the end of it was that we ended up winning. The attorney general ended up coming back and saying, "Hey, we'd like to settle," and we were still in the thick of it. And I was like, "Well," and of course, once again, stubborn Shane was like, "Oh, of course you want to settle, because you're realizing that there's nothing there, right?"
Yeah.
And that was, but and my attorney said, "Hey, this is awesome." And I was like, "Yeah, we got him against the wall." And he's like, "No, no, no. That's what we were looking to do, is get out of this, right? We're not trying to put them up against the wall." And because I'm like, "Well, you guys have like really messed my life up." And so I was trying not to take that personally, which of
Yeah.
course I am taking it very personally. And so, we're in a situation where we ended up, winning, and we, had to go through some certain things and file this and do that and all the things. And there were some things that I had to say that I did that weren't necessarily true for me to be able to move forward, and for the lawsuit to be dropped, which I didn't like. And, that's another conversation. But at the end of the day, it was like, to get out of it, this is what I had to do. And it was just a crazy, crazy situation of like, man, what just happened? Like, it's, here we are, got this business. We're obviously showing traction. There's, a good amount of people that are signed up with us. I mean, we had obviously 1,600 customers, a lot of people that were put in bad loans. We did definitely help some people,
Yeah.
but when you got bigger people, and once again, nothing against Wells Fargo or Bank of America. They did what they had to do. They felt they were being attacked, and they're protecting their house. I totally get that. And same thing with Jerry Brown, who was the attorney general at the time. You
Well,
know, yeah,
I think that in hearing this story, it's just such an incredible sideways moment because this was not just a huge thing, life changing, but it was like continuous stress for a long period of time where you don't know how it's going to turn out. And that uncertainty weighing on you, the responsibilities that you have, the questions you have about who you are, what you're going to do with your life, like what you're able to do at that moment. And I'm sure at some point you just wanted to sort of duck your head and like just
oh,
plug me in someplace where I can make money and go over here and have something be super simple, super easy that I don't have to stress out about because it's chaos over in this part of my life, you know?
yeah. And there was no tapping out. It's not like you just quit your job and you go and do something different. I had to stay engaged, and I had to be a part of it, reading thousands of pages of legal documents, going through emails. And I mean, it was my full-time job was to fight for my life, right? It really is
Yeah.
what it was. And so the hard part was the thing that really bothered me, and not that it didn't bother me that I was a part of it, but was how it affected my family, how it affected my friends, how it affected my name, how it affected all of my customers, all my employees. That was the hard part for me because they're all innocent victims. And I'm not saying, I was innocent too, but I get it on the face of the company. Of course, you're going to come after me. I'll take the punches, right? I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I didn't know they were going to be that big of punches. I would have preferred smaller punches, but like at the end of the day, it's like, I'll take that on.
Yeah.
But the hard part is how everybody else was looking at it. Like I had family members that called me up that were either family members that were their friends were clients, and they would call me up and say, "Hey, what are you doing? You're scamming people." And I'm like, "Wait, hold a second. Like
Oh my
you're
gosh.
seeing you just saw something on the news, and somebody said this is what's happening. But like me as an individual, like, do you think I would do that? Well, I can't imagine that you would do that. Then why
How
are you believing
hurtful.
this, right?
Oh my,
Because it's yeah,
scary and hurtful. And I mean, you think about like your reputation, and I think this ties in obviously directly into everything that you're doing today, but like you think about your reputation and like the relationships that you have with people. And when they're starting to come to you and make assumptions about you based off of what somebody else is saying, it's like dagger to the heart, the spleen, the soul, like every other piece of your body that you can think of. Like, I can't even imagine. And you probably you wanted to probably replace those billboards that you had been on before for advertising and say, not it. Like, come on, this
yeah.
is not, I'm not getting a fair shake here.
Well, and that's the hard part is like whose attention do you get and then who's going to have your side, right? They see something on whatever channel it is, they assume it's facts. And so that was the hard part too. We actually have some interesting things that we did to combat that, which is, like I said, another conversation. But we definitely did everything we could to try to push back on that PR stuff. Like
Yeah.
give you an example, the people they interviewed, once again, they didn't win their cases, but they said that we didn't do anything. Well, what I did was I actually created a video, and it showed like 400 pages of documents on stuff that we did do for each one of them. Like
Yeah.
there was stuff that was filed, there were things that were done. They made it seem like we just took the money and ran off to Mexico. Like that's not true. And so they
Yeah.
weren't being honest about what happened. They might not like the outcome, but to say that there was nothing that was done is absolutely untrue. So we had to go and kind of fight that and say, hey, didn't win the case, but let me show you what we did do. This, we filed these motions, these things happened. So there was, I wanted to make sure that people knew that we didn't take advantage of people. What we were doing
Yeah.
is trying to help them. And really, at the end of the day, two of them out of the three that were interviewed hadn't even paid us for the last 6 months, but we continued to fight their case. They didn't tell anybody that. So what I'm saying is like, like for us, it was like, hey, I'm not trying to badmouth these people, but I am going to let you know that what they're saying is not 100% true. Did we not win? That is true. But guess what? Let me show you what we did do for them. So you can kind of know that because they had this narrative of like, we ran off and we, got an RV and we grabbed some female dancers and drugs and just ran off and went off to, Uruguay or something. Like, that's not what we did. Like, we were
Yeah.
literally stayed in Sacramento and did our thing. So, yeah, it was a pretty crazy what it did for me and what I realize now, and this is, we talked about going from something that traumatic or crazy that happens and how do you deal with it. What it did for me is just realize how to I don't want to have a big business where I have 130 employees. So now we have a very, small, agile team. Also understanding like our potential risks, right? So we talk about like SWOT analysis or things like, hey, what is your risks? And so now I look at risk very differently of like, hey, I mean, right now we remove reviews for people that are selling Amazon. So we're also Amazon's a big fish. So
Yeah.
that's another one. So it's like people think, this thing with going after, big companies or something. Apparently I do. I guess apparently I'm very stubborn. But the thing of it is like, well, how do we do things differently, right? How do we protect ourselves? Because, like I
Yeah.
said, over at US Loan Auditors, I had top 10 attorney firm in the nation. We were probably top five, actually, they were. And they were huge. I mean, you're
My
talking
gosh.
thousands of attorneys. Yeah. And I'm paying, crazy retainer each month, even if they didn't fight anything. So I was like, I'm well protected here, but I wasn't, right? I was very vulnerable and didn't know that. And so anyways, that the point of this was is like now I do things very differently and think about I really look at risk before I would look at it. But I was like, if you do the
Yeah.
right thing, good things will happen. I do that $3 million, I think, was the good thing that happened to me, where whoever we believe in, higher ups, wherever, that they did something and said, hey, let's give this kid a shot. And to this day, I still like it still blows me away that even happened, because it's just my attorney was like, I've never seen this. He's been an attorney for 30 years at that time. He's like, I've never seen them apologize and say you got $3 million ever.
Well, it's
So,
amazing. It's amazing that they did that. And I did want to ask, did this directly lead to trace views? Like, did this directly lead to, hey, this if this happened to me, this can happen to others, and like, I want to figure out a way to help that person fight off when there's things that are unfairly being said about that. Is that where that came from? And did you
it,
go directly from that business to creating trace views, or was there like, walk me
yeah,
through how all of this
yeah,
happened,
yeah.
because the genesis, if you will.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, how it played out. So what happened was is during this whole time, and obviously the lawsuit and everything, I really couldn't do anything else except focus on this, because it was just like it was taking up so much of my time. And so it was very difficult even though I was applying for jobs, as I said, and people were, oh my God, great, great, great. And they would ghost me. And I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out. What this caused me to do was go into online reputation management. And so what I did is, because I had to go clean up my own name, and
Mhm.
said, okay, so I've got to go learn this. And so that's what I spent my time. I went to the gym. I lost 40 pounds. I was,
Wow.
focusing on what I could control, right? What are
Okay.
things that I can control? Like, yeah, exactly. Like I'm like
Yeah.
running away from, the attorneys.
Yeah.
And so what I was trying to figure out is, okay, what can I make what are the things I can control, make my life better personally? So I did that. And then what I did is I went ahead and started doing online reputation management for celebrities down in Southern California.
Huh.
Because I was in Northern
Do you even,
California.
wait a second, time out. How do you go? I mean, even if I dreamt of going into online reputation management, I think that the jump from I'm, on my treadmill at the gym figuring out what I'm gonna do, online reputation management. Yeah, I'm gonna make things right for these celebrities. How did you jump to that? Oh my God,
So,
that's
so
crazy.
what was crazy about it is that what I wanted to do was I wanted to work with celebrities, and the way that this happened was I want to work with people that were put into situations that they didn't do something wrong necessarily, right? So what I mean by that is maybe ex-wife or somebody saying something crazy that really didn't happen. And so if somebody would come to me, I had it was a friend of a celebrity, I can't say their name, but that came to me and said, hey, I have a situation with a friend of mine, and I didn't know they were who they were. And like I know that with what you've done with your thing and how you've kind of cleared your name up, would you help them? And I was like, absolutely. So they introduced me, and I'm like, okay, this is like an A-list celebrity, right? So I'm looking at that
Yeah.
going, this is kind of crazy. Well, at that time, it was because, mainly with celebrities, it's not they're not going to go Google and find out who the next person is. They're going to go talk to people in their industry, the network, and say, hey, who do you work with? Well, the guy that I'd work with I mean, he was obviously really, really big, but we were able to clear him up because it was a situation that was, I can't give all the details because I can't, because then people
You
know who he
can't
is. But
anyway.
anyways, my point is that I was able to clear his name and help him online, right?
Yeah.
Offline was his own thing, he had a court case and all this, but online I was able to help him clear that up. And then so of course naturally he goes and talks to other people. And I did have a few celebrities that reached out to me that they came to me and they're like, hey, I have a friend, this happened to him. And I'm like, well, do you think that really happened? Like, and it was a really bad situation. And they go, yeah, we think it did, but we want to clean it up. And I was like, yeah, I want nothing to do with that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm not, you don't have enough money and it's not even a money thing for me. Like, if you're a bad person and you did bad things, and I mean really bad things from what I understand, I don't want any part of that. I'm not here to like cover things. I'm not the fixer. I'm here like, hey, if you want me to even the playing field and cut like not and push that stuff down because you can prove to me that this was not you, that this was a situation or something happened. So I
Yeah.
had to learn that because my ethics and morals were more important than money to me. So I
Yeah.
that's how things got kind of interesting there. And then from there, because I have a background in SEO, so of like, content and pushing stuff down and
Yeah.
moving,
Yeah.
so that's how it naturally kind of progressed into that. I didn't have to advertise. It was kind of word of mouth that people were saying, "Oh, he did a good job for me." So that kind of took off, and then naturally now it jumped into trace views. The thing with U.S. loan auditors is about 2008, like right around when the mortgage collapse happened. So that's what like, kind of our basis of saying, "Hey, how can all these loans go bad if less people are taking advantage of, anyways?" And Trace Shoes has been about 6 years old right now. So we started Trace Shoes, well, I'm going to about 2020 is right when we started to launch. It took about 2 years to figure it out. And now over the last 4.5 years, we have over 700 brands we work with, and I've removed over 17,000 reviews on the Amazon
So,
platform where they,
so that's fascinating. So, okay, so you went from, and I know this is more like the strategy of like the focus of the business and stuff, but at some point you decide Amazon, right? At some point you decide, I mean, you're deciding what this thing is going to be along the way. And if it's 2020, then we've also got this little thing called COVID that has
COVID.
everybody and their brother ordering everything from Amazon, you know. So
Yeah.
like so like how did that impact? I have a million and one questions. There's no way that we're going to be able to cover everything
I
that
told you.
I ask you right
I
now.
told you.
I know.
Well,
Yeah.
well, the way that I'll tell you how I transitioned to Amazon. So because we were doing, I was working direct to consumer with a lot of brands through shanebarker.com, my main website. And so what happened was I always had wanted to do like a software company, and I was intrigued. And I was like, hey, what are your biggest issues with Amazon?
Mhm.
And a lot of people said reviews. And so I was a little too confident and said, oh man, here, hold my beer. Like I'll give me 2 weeks. I'll be able to figure that out. Not a problem. Well, it took 2 years to figure it out. It was an ongoing process, and there was a lot of consultants we worked with and really tried to figure it out. We finally ended up cracking the code. So that's how that transition kind of happened into Amazon. Was I had some direct to consumer customers, and guess what? When stuff hit the fan, they're like, or brick and mortar businesses or restaurants that I was working with, that I'm like, okay, well, how do I protect these businesses as best I can, right? Like
Yeah.
negative reviews to me aren't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it sucks for businesses, but a lot of the times it helps you improve your product or your service. So it's not,
Yeah.
it sucks to see it in a public forum, but I don't look at every bad review you get, you should get removed.
Yeah.
There's also a learning
Yeah.
lesson. You got to understand and say, hey, if you own a restaurant and somebody says, you have 5 people that wrote a review about your hostess cussing them out, guess what? She's probably cussing them out. Like I'm
Right.
pretty sure of it at that point,
Right.
right? So what I'm looking at is people that maybe were attacked or put in a bad position, or an ex-employee
Like
that
on
wrote something.
purpose, because you hear about
Yeah.
this when people are like,
Oh,
it's like somebody doesn't like them, and so they're get on this vendetta, and they're like, "Oh, I know what to do. I'm going to crash their business because, I don't like them, and so I'm going to get me and all of my friends to go and add a bunch of bad reviews." And you hear those
well,
stories. You hear that.
It, I see it on a daily basis because we see people that either being attacked on Amazon, and this happens on all platforms, not just Amazon, but where people go, you have a competitor that will come and buy your product and give you a 1-star review. They'll get a buyer's account, and then they'll
Yeah.
just give you all kinds of 1-star reviews. Well, guess what? That also flags Amazon that, hey, maybe there's a problem. So
Hmm.
they drop you in your sales because they go, well, we don't want anything that, like, I'll give you an example. People will say, oh, I took this creatine and I went to the hospital for 2 weeks. Well, guess what? If enough people say that, and Amazon, hey, there's a problem here. Well, that
Yeah.
could have been just 6 different buyers that were strategically placed by your competitor that put that, but everybody went to the hospital, and then all of a sudden they stop you, they freeze you, and guess when this happens? During
Mhm.
Prime Day or Christmas, or when all of your sales come in. So, and I'm not saying that happens with every category, but I will tell you
Yeah.
the pet supplements and beauty are the where it happens the most on Amazon because
Interesting.
it's a lower price point. So let's say it's, like I always give the example of my dog Bailey, who's 17. She's had the same dog treats, let's say, for 15 years. And I would say my wife has no budget when it comes to dog treats. I can confirm that. I can tell you copious amounts of money are spent on dog treats. So what it is, if Bailey likes, she gets a bag, let's say a month at $30. She's
Yeah.
17 years old. She started when she was 2. Do the math. I mean, Bailey is
Yes.
worth, a few $1,000, $4,000 or $5,000 easily. And so they have a bigger lifetime value, but the amount to purchase the item is a lot cheaper. So ethically, it doesn't make sense. But from an ROI perspective, they go, I can go buy 10 of those bags and
Hmm.
that cost me $300. I give you 10 one-star reviews. It crushes your brand. And now I'm below you. I go above you now. Right.
Right.
And they do these strategies. And
Suddenly
so
Bailey's treats aren't available
I
anymore.
mean,
Oh,
don't even bring that up because if Bailey hears that there's no treats available, we're gonna
yeah,
have a
that would be
problem in the house.
terrible. My dog's name is Gucci, and I know Gucci has her treat. She's 12, and I
Uh,
can't even imagine.
it would be a very, 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 very bad thing for sure.
It'd be just awful. So
Detrimental.
okay, so yeah, so they're able to do this because it's a lower price point to go and buy like these 300 bags and give 300 one-star reviews. And you figured out, and your team has figured out how to be able to identify that, combat that type of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, the way I looked at this was, as I said, I'm not just going after reviews that you don't like as the owner because
Yeah.
there's can be learning lessons there. I'm looking at if somebody attacked you or something happened. Really, what we do is we go after reviews that violate Amazon's own rules.
Uh,
So we're looking for fraud is one thing, being if somebody a competitor, and then we look at if somebody like customer review, mention a competitor, mention pricing. Those are all things that are against Amazon's own rules. So if you said this is an effing terrible product with effing being a cuss word, well, guess what? We would go in and say, hey, Amazon, we don't want the F word on the platform. You guys have clearly said that in your community guidelines. Can we get this review removed? And then we go through that whole process to get it removed. So it's
wow.
fraud, but it's also people that, that anything that goes through Amazon's system and it somehow gets through their system, then we go and file cases or send emails to Amazon to get those removed.
Just so busy. I bet I mean, like, are you really just like, you have to be busy nonstop?
I, I am, and we even have some other stuff that we're creating software wise right now. And I'm a little bit of a, I guess crazy would be probably the right term. For me, I look at ways to. It makes me happy if I can help people and make money. So that's
Yeah.
always been my thing.
Yeah.
Is like if I can do good things, and if somebody comes back to me and says, "Hey, because you removed those 5 reviews, I just doubled my sales."
Hmm.
The money that I make is great, but really what it comes down to is that I just changed somebody's life. Like that now they can feed their family again. Like that for me, it's a lot bigger than just collecting money. I mean, I do like money and I do enjoy
Yeah.
building a good
Yeah.
business and taking care of my employees and all the fun stuff. But I really, if I can make an impact, like for me, like give you another example, during COVID, I jumped in and started doing heavy government consulting, which, between us, the government doesn't pay real well. If anybody from the
Yeah.
government's listening, I still love you guys, but they don't pay real well. But at the end of the day, I'm like, well, if I have something that I could give to somebody that would help save their business during COVID, why would I not do that?
Right.
Right? Like my own team is like, wait a second, you get paid this, but now down here you're getting paid this. Why are you doing that? Well, because it's not necessarily for the paycheck. It's because I want to be able to give back and help people. And if I can do that, if I can take your restaurant from a brick and mortar, which COVID just said, hey, you got to shut down. If I can get you onto a program where you get DoorDash or get people coming into your restaurant and you can actually, don't have to touch people or talk to people and you can get the food out, like that would save businesses. And so if I know how to do that, why would I not? If you can't afford me right now and your sales are going down, well, of course you can't afford me because your sales are going down. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that was a way for me to still be able to go out and make a little bit of money and be able to help businesses. So I always look at it from that angle.
So trust obviously plays a huge role in everything that you do, and also because of the things that you've shared with me, and all of us today. It's also something that you've had to probably move around and play with what trust means, your relationship to trust in your own life, especially when you were going through all of this turmoil with, being attacked and everything, having to defend yourself to people who should know you so well. And you're like, don't you know me? Don't you trust me?
Yeah.
Don't you? So this relationship with trust seems to be like front and center in everything that you're doing, like this through line, just going through everything. Um, can you talk to me a little bit about that? Talk to me about your relationship to trust as you were going through, and what you think about it and the work that you do with people today, because I imagine that like, because you're working with people whose companies are going through their own sideways moments,
Yeah.
where people are challenging how trustworthy they are and how
Hmm.
trustworthy their products are. you know I don't know, when you think about trust, what's the role that you see it playing in your life as a through line?
Yeah. So trust is like for any of the businesses that I've ever had, it's just pertinent. Like, I mean, you have to trust the person. If I'm selling you on something or telling you we can help you, they're trusting in me, right? And
Yeah.
that affects a lot of different things, not just their business, it affects their family. So trust is something that once again is hard to earn, but it's easy to lose, right? We talk about
Yeah.
that. So, for me, when I'm looking at trust has been a really big thing. I will tell you when the lawsuit came and all these things happened and friends that thought were friends of mine went sideways, no pun, all puns intended apparently. Like it was a situation where I had to realize, like, first I internalized it and said, okay, why? Like, right, like I'm a good person, I'm doing good things.
Right.
I'm not perfect by any means, but like I shouldn't have this kind of karma. Like, this is not just karma,
Yeah.
this is karma times 50. So like, what do I learn through this whole thing, right? And so what I did realize through that, I started to, because trust obviously was a big thing, but I did trust in my heart that I was going to get out of this. I just didn't know how, and I didn't know how that journey was going to be, right? Like, was
Yeah.
that going to be like me not having any money and me going to jail because I can't fight? Like, I don't, like, I
Yeah.
didn't know. I mean, you talk about the worst thing I had ever done is I got a parking ticket. I got a ticket for speeding once. Like, I'm not. It's if I was like a felon, I'm like, oh great, another thing where you know how to fight it. Like, I'm going into territory that I have no idea. So I'm really trusting, I hate to say the system, but I'm just trusting like things are going to happen in my life so that I'm going to get through this. I had to have major trust, kind of blind trust, because I don't know how this thing's going to. There's so many things that could have happened that it would have went this way instead of going this way,
Right.
right? And I didn't even give you all the stories. The big one was that $3 million, obviously, but there was so many other things that if they brought criminal charges against me for whatever reason, that $3 million would have went away.
Oh my gosh.
And so at any point, I'm like, if they could just file something and that money would have been gone. Now they didn't, I don't know if they knew that, but I'm like, there was so many ways to checkmate me again that I was just kind of like every day I'd wake up and I'm like, ooh, like, are they gonna like what's gonna happen?
Were you
And get a little
afraid just to even walk outside your door at times? Because like I feel like when things really go wrong, you said it earlier, you said something that I definitely have heard before and I've felt before, which is I'm a good person. I am doing good in this world. I have not hurt anyone on purpose. Like, why is this
yeah,
happening to me? And yet life does what life does, you know?
yeah.
It's like it's not always about karma. Sometimes it's just like this struggle that you're gonna go through. Ah, you
Yeah.
know?
That's about how it felt on a daily basis. It's funny when people ask me like, how did you get through it?
Yeah,
And I don't know if I don't, I mean, I know how I got through it, but I don't know how I got through it. Like, what I mean by is I took care of and I touched on this earlier, is I took control of things I can take control over, right?
at the
I can't,
gym, you know?
yep, the gym, absolutely. The gym, anything that I'm like, okay, getting better fitness, I
Yeah,
can still spend time with my family and I can, do those things. Those are things I'm in control of. I can't control what other people are saying, which is very difficult for me because especially when they're attacking me, and I know that's not true. And so I had to go, okay, like that's going on. Right? Nothing I can do about that for the most part, right? But what I need to do is focus on myself and my family, and like how do I go to and like stabilize that, right? How do I something that I have control over? It's the same thing now. I look at like politics or world hunger. It's like I can't control all of that. I can do some
yeah,
things to help and donate or whatever, but I can only really control what's here. And I don't mean control like everything, but I mean just more of like if I want to go lose weight, I can go lose weight at the end of the day, right? I don't even need a treadmill. I can go out, walk outside and go walk for 20 miles. Like, so there's things that I'm going, okay, what can I feel like I do have control because all this stuff is out of control, right? I don't have really anything other than having an attorney, but I also had an attorney right before they sued me. So, it's not, there's no guarantees with it. And so I'm taking it day by day, going, okay,
Yeah.
well, let's see what happens, and didn't get anything about any criminal stuff, even though I didn't do anything criminally wrong. But that doesn't mean they can't file a criminal lawsuit against you or come after you. Like, all this stuff doesn't mean they can do whatever they want. That doesn't mean that you did it, but they can come after. Like, I could file a lawsuit against you for whatever reason. I could just go do it. We can go to war, and then after 1 year say, hey, I was just kidding. Right? Like, I mean, it's
Right.
crazy like that.
Yeah.
There's nobody that says, hey, you can or can't do that. If I want to file an issue and I think you did me wrong, we can go down that road. But of course, if I have billions of dollars and you don't have billions of dollars, in
That
theory, I'm
road
going to
might be
win. In
short.
theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, you come up a
Yeah.
little short. So,
Shorter road, driveway.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about this and I think it's kind of incredible, your story. I imagine that with AI, it's just enhanced the speed of everything and the amount of everything, because I know that with your solution and with your services that there's an AI component that can be built in to fight. I also know that that's probably also needs to be there because the AI is going to be pummeling people with bad review. I mean, it's like this not virtuous cycle. It's just this ongoing thing that's going to continue and continue. And so I don't know, like when as you're building now, I'm going to ask you for your vision of the future at this moment. Where do you see things going at this moment? Understanding that, things can go sideways, but from here, what's your vision for where things head next?
Yeah, I mean, for myself or
Yeah.
AI or both?
For you,
For me, for
for
me.
you, your business.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me now, my goal is to continue to help people. We have Trace Shoes, obviously, it's all Amazon focused. We do,
Mhm.
US, Canada, and UK are the three platforms that we focus on. We actually are going to be doing some more in the online reputation management space. We have some other company softwares that we're creating to help people on Google, and to help on another different other platforms where people maybe have, reviews have been put up there by employees or somebody that doesn't like them or a competitor. So we really want to start evening the playing fields there as well. So, my thing is, I'm still a firm believer in if you do good things will happen. Not doesn't have to be all good things. Bad things can happen. I mean, I'm very I have a clear case of that, of being sued for $60 million.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I just look at it like, I still haven't. My values are still the same. I still want to do good, and I still want to help people, and be able to make money doing that. And so that is my goal. I'm going to really catapult what we've done at Trace Shoes with our 700 brands, and really bring that to the forefront. And I really, really want to. And I say clean up, but what I mean is I want to add some more transparency to the online reputation management space, because I do believe it feels a little cloak and dagger and a little like you're hiring a company, you don't know who it is. My goal is to really take that on, and to help companies at a decent price. I see a lot of these companies that are charging just crazy amounts of money, and what really bothers me is they're taking, not all of them, but they're taking advantage of people because they know they're in a bad position, and they
Yeah.
know they can close them at a higher rate, right? They can charge you $1,000 to remove a review because you're in a bad position. And I don't like that, right? Because I know what it costs, and it doesn't cost anything close to $1,000. So if I
Yeah.
can offer that at half the price or a third of that price, that's what I want to do, because I do understand, because I've been through it, right?
Yeah.
Myself. Like, I understand how badly you wake up and how much these reviews can really mess you up from mentally and physically. And so for me, I'm looking at this thing going, okay, how can I make this economical? No different than we did at US loan auditors for other people that were taking advantage. I can still make a decent wage and still make some money and set proper expectations and have the same results as somebody that's coming in and gouging somebody. So, I don't like that. Like, I like, I understand making money. I'm not saying you shouldn't make money, because you could,
Yeah.
but going in and knowing that their back's against the wall, the same way these people were putting mortgages where their back was against the wall. They were offered this, sold their house. They have to take this. There's no
Yeah.
other options. They just sold their place. So that, to me, when you leverage people like that, I'm not a fan of that at all. And
Price
so,
gouging, don't need to do that. Right.
no,
Yeah.
no, you can still make money, and still, they look at, I think, more of a, like, from the financial aspect. I look at it like, can I help you? right?
Right.
And can I be realistic about what I think that expectation is at what we can do and what we can't do? And so
Yeah.
my goal is to jump into the industry and get the prices down to a point where people can trust us, and once again be able to make some good things happen for those folks.
If there's somebody who's listening to this story and they're going through something that, as odd as it may seem with this story, but they have a plan that just fell apart. The market just shifted underneath them. They're being sued for an amazing amount of money, and they don't know what they're going to do. Without giving them a formula or a promise, what feels honest to say to them right now?
This is what I say, and this is going to be probably the oddest answer that you've ever heard from anybody. Congratulations, because guess what? Now you have some room to grow. You're right. And you might not realize that when it's happening, because I can tell you the minute I got hit with that lawsuit, I didn't look at this like, oh, look at I can be a flower and grow. That wasn't what I thought about it, right? I was looking at this going,
Sprinkle.
oh, damn. Like, what am I going to do? Yeah, like where this thing just blew up. Like, what is going on? Like, what is happening, right? I'm trying to assess the damage from being attacked, right? So, what I would tell people is what you really want at the end of the day, not what you really want, but the way you need to look at it is how can I grow from this situation, right?
Yeah.
Because my businesses, because of that, now, I would never take that back because it was a very big learning lesson. Now, I wish my family didn't have to go through it. I wish my employees and my customers didn't have to go through that. But there was nothing I could do about that. It happened. It was like it was nothing I could have done. The way you look at this is once again, how do you grow from this, right? I know that's very cliche, but how do you grow from this? Like my online reputation management business wouldn't have happened unless I need to clean up my own name. Now that's an expensive lesson. I could have gone to any college in the world for way under $60 million, but like I could have gone anywhere and learned that. But what I did learn was, okay, how do I apply what just happened to me? And all of my businesses moving forward, even though I was helping people here, and now I've really it's helped me with clarity and focus on how I can even help people even more on other places where people were being taken advantage of. So what it did, it only made me more powerful and more, I guess, strong in what I've learned through that whole process. And you too will become stronger in whatever you're dealing with, right? Like it sucks. You can be in the middle of the storm. It always helps to have other people outside of the storm that are helping assess what you got going on. But you can make it. I mean, I'm telling you, I did, and once again, it wasn't easy, but we did make it through. The biggest thing, what I would do is figure out what you can control. What are
Yeah.
you in control of, right? What are some things that you go, hey, out of these 10 things, I can't control these 8 because it's ex-wife, ex-husband, attorney general, whatever that is. But how can I focus on my health? I can focus on losing some weight. I can do the things that I say, hey, listen, these are all things that nobody can stop me from doing, right? Because I still have this and I want to value this and take care of myself as much as I can. And that's what I did. I looked at what do I have control over, and I knew that that eventually good things would happen, but I just didn't know how long that was going to be. It just happened to be 2 years, and it just happened a gift, not a gift, but I was, paying my premiums. So thank goodness I was paying my premiums, and I got $3 million to fight the case. But
Yeah.
that all happened because I believe that once again, not to seem all foofy and hippie, but like that good things happen to good people. And hey, you put some good stuff out there that eventually, it might not feel like it, but you will pop out of that. Things are, there'll be something better on the other side, which once again, I know is very cliche, but trust me, there is.
Excellent stuff. I thank you so much for joining me today. There's a lot of people who are probably holding on to some plan or some vision of their life that even as they're hearing this, they have the idea that it's not going to go out, it's not going to continue that way, that things are going to be changing. Your story, Shane, it reminds us that even when things are falling apart or things are not going the way that we want them to, that there is something that we can learn on the other side of it. And so before we go, everyone, Shane has some great resources. We're going to have links to everything in the show notes. His website, he has a couple of websites, tracefuse.ai. You want to go to that and check that out. Learning hub that's there, ways to connect with him directly, shanebarker.com you want to go to. And I suppose they can check you out on LinkedIn too.
I am very active on LinkedIn. Yes, I do about 600,000 impressions a month. So I'm crazy active there. So please reach out at any time. Just go into LinkedIn, put in Shane Barker, and I'll probably be at the top, hopefully.
All right. So look, you don't have to resolve everything, all the things today. You just have to stop pretending. That's enough for now. And remember, when things go sideways, everyone, that's where the real story begins. Thank you so much.
Thank you.